weeks. And so I call her and I go, did you send me the meeting? And she's like, and I've known Jem for 25 years.
Yeah.
It, like, over delivers. And I was like, she's like,
Well, we're here now. And I actually first worked with Jen about 2.5 years ago, actually setting up an interview with Laird. Yeah. So is my audio, are you able to hear these or no? Okay. Maybe I should you're kind of low a bit.
Am I? Hold on.
Oh, you're good there though. You're good there. It's kind of, yeah.
How's that?
That's good. Yeah. It's kind of like, it'll be good and then it goes in and out. Maybe it's just the connection.
Welcome.
It's all right.
For this internet service, buddy.
So what I was thinking, I mean, I love the work you're doing with XBT. I've been in contact PJ Nestor.
Oh yeah, Nestler.
Nestler. I first was in contact with him 4 years ago. Yeah, the breathwork stuff, the recovery component. I've been listening to your show, the Gabby Reece podcast. So I know you guys have a lot on. You're super busy. So I was thinking this platform, maybe we could start with maybe something you're currently working on, something that you're passionate about. We could just leave it open there and then just flow from there.
How about you lead and I follow? It's your thing. I'm easy. I don't try to over dictate, because then I'm doing the same thing over and over. Where if this is when you're in charge, then you're reflected in it.
Perfect. Let's rock and roll then. I was recently listening to a chat you were having, and the intention was the pursuit, this lifelong pursuit that we all have when we have goals, when we want to achieve something, when we want to get to a certain place. And it's almost like it never feels enough for us individually. Somebody like yourself, your resume is unbelievable. Anybody could just search your name and pick those things out. Maybe talk about and share insights on how you deal with that pursuit, and maybe some advice to people out there who feel that they're just not, maybe they feel inadequate even though they're giving it their all.
You know, it's an interesting thought, because I have to be honest, a lot of what I have, like the things that are behind me that are now sort of officially on paper, that are considered part of my resume or body of work, we're all just living out questions and curiosities. And listen, not in an uncalculated way. I think it's, it's sort of lining up who you are and where you think you're moving towards. And then as things arise, you go, hey, does this feel good or not? Could I work really hard at this? What if this never works out? Will I still be ahead just having tried? And so I think kind of even from very young, I naturally had things that would guide me through that process of wondering if something was worth pursuing. And so if somebody, let's say someone's listening and they're feeling like, oh, I'm not doing enough, I think you have to first ask yourself why. And that really comes back to our value system and our definition, our individual definition of success. I think the world gives us a basket of definitions about what success is. And I actually think that real success starts first with your definition. And so I think if people, let's say someone's saying, oh, I feel inadequate, that could also be like, maybe I'm not satisfied with the types of relationships or the depths of relationships I'm having. Maybe that inadequate feeling is, I could probably be making choices in my lifestyle, if it's moving or eating, that might be better for me. So I think it's sort of not just putting that one feeling in a pursuit of professional pursuit or passion, but also looking at life, because I know a lot of people, let's say they reach the top of the mountain professionally, but because they didn't listen to that voice all along, there's so many other parts of their life that are out of whack, that they'll always have that feeling of something's not right. So I think it has to start there, and it has to be for your real reasons. Meaning, if it's, and even if you're just clear, like if you go, hey, I really just want to make a lot of cash. Like, you have to be that clear and that honest. If you actually think that's your definition of success, and work from those places. I mean, typically you hear money doesn't make you happy. It certainly makes things easier, but I would agree overall, with that statement. And lastly, I think I'm very strategic once I'm in, but I wasn't strategic about everything. So I wasn't strategic about relationships. I wasn't strategic about, once I knew like I was turned on by something or really dug something or thought, okay, I could dedicate some real work hours to something. Then I got strategic about, well, what does that look like? And how do I achieve those goals? And, what is the system I need to put in place to do so? So I think it's having like almost pure intentions coming in and then get, okay, dialed once you're in.
Yeah, man, you covered so much. Intuition. I love the conversation about when we are searching or we're on that quest for finding what our path is supposed to be. A lot of people, maybe they want to just have that answer. They want somebody to say, hey, do this. Maybe they're feeling lost and they've gone so far outside of themselves. They don't know what it's like to tap into that intuition. They second guess that intuitive voice that you mentioned about go this way, go that way. With you, when you were, being the highest level of athlete in your sport, to what you've been able to do from that to this, to where you are now, being successful in so many areas, talk about the importance of that, of your own intuition in terms of those decision-making skills when you've had to either audit or edit who to listen to, who to go after, that sort of thing. Talk about that, please.
I want to start the beginning of that comment, which is I've listened to a lot of the wrong advice, and I've also gone in pursuit of businesses that were not successful. So those are all equally a part of the equation as well. I think as you go through time, you do that less, but be clear, it's impossible to avoid making sometimes those mistakes, which are the learning opportunities. But when I was young and in fashion and working in New York and playing volleyball at Florida State, I'll never forget, I had an accountant in New York who said to me, why are you playing? And not only did I give up my scholarship in college, I then paid to play because of NCAA rules and working and such. And my accountant was like, why are you playing volleyball? Like, you have an opportunity right now to make money in this business, and it's a short period of time. So to your point about intuition, I didn't know what it was going to look like. I just knew I felt really good when I was playing ball. And I enjoyed fashion. And if you want to talk about a great job, it's a great job. However, the person, it touched something inside of me to play volleyball, to be part of a team, to put myself in stressful, pressure situations. So I think even then it was like, no, I'm going to trust the feeling of where I feel really good. And good doesn't always mean easy. And good doesn't always make sometimes it doesn't make the most sense. It makes sense later. People go, oh, that was amazing. It's like, no, I didn't know, I just followed that. And by the way, sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes if it's ego driven or if it's fear based, which some of my decisions have been, or I did get caught up with somebody who didn't give me good advice, those are important too, because then, especially you're talking about entrepreneurship and business, you have to make those mistakes so you know what are the right choices or the right kinds of people, and you're able to recognize them as you move through. So I think people need to get counsel. We all need mentors. But I also think, though, is when you're being mentored or people are guiding you, you have to keep checking in with yourself and go, well, how does that feel? How does that feel? Because at the end of the day, it's our walk. And the only way our life can reflect that fully, or as fully as we hope, is that's why we have that voice. And the more you listen to it and flex that muscle and trust it, and even if it's about meeting people and going, something's off about them. And they might be shiny, right? They might have big titles and lots of cash and whatever. And you shiny. Go, and you might, something's not right. You got to listen to that because it will come up later.
Has there been a time where, from the business side of things with ideas and being a creator, where you've had this idea, you brought it to life, and it just didn't, at that moment, it just didn't work out. And you just sit back and reflect. You're like, how did this not work out? I put everything into this, and then maybe time passed, and and then all of a sudden something happens and it comes back to like, oh, now it's working. I'm glad I didn't give up on that totally. Has that ever happened to you with all the business stuff that you're into? And maybe talk about the importance of persistence and being passionate about something, even if in the moment it doesn't seem like it's working out, but still believing in it to maybe in future tense push for it.
You know, it's interesting. I think it's like iterations of pursuit. So what do I mean by that? So let's say, for example, we had a nutrition company several years ago, and it was still based on Laird and myself, our value system. We had, I thought, which was a right concept going into it. We probably didn't have the right team. It probably wasn't unique enough. Timing, whatever the million reasons are, right? So in that moment, it was like, at some point you have to go, okay, when is it time to call it? That's important. But you don't abandon, like we didn't all of a sudden stop pursuing a healthy lifestyle. So the point is other things were still consistently moving forward, and then it got expressed in a different business. So it just depends. Like, let's say you have a widget and you go, listen, I believe that this is going to do it. I think you have to, I always call it like, pretend nobody cares. Like, because you and your 3 best friends or your mother think it's the greatest thing from sliced bread doesn't actually mean it is. So you have to have passion, but you have to be able to be objective and be like, am I too early? Am I too late? Is this really too niche or whatever? And then be consistent though in your pursuit, because it might show up like you said, but it just might be expressing itself in a different way. And I think that that's important. You can't be like, oh, I'm a used car salesman. Now I'm in the soda business. Now I'm into natural foods. That's a do and die thing. I think it's first, like, you have a pool of things that you're sort of thinking you enjoy and you want to do and you believe in. And then you're moving through that kind of lane. It can be a wide lane. So if something doesn't work right then, it may again, but just a little bit later with a twist. And I think that's important. And sometimes it's just also important to know when to go. Didn't work.
How difficult is it for you personally to take feedback or advice, maybe from Laird, from your partner, just because you guys, in surfer, big wave legend, individual, volleyball at its highest level, runway model, you know, you built these careers individually and you came together and form a powerhouse. But regarding, like, is there ever a time when communication kind of seems, talk about the struggles of communication when maybe a house like your house is so filled with awesome people and awesome thoughts?
Well, listen, we're just regular, like every people. So we have like awesome moments, and then we have, you know, other. And listen, Laird and I are parents. Like, there's a lot of dynamics. So what really works well for us, first of all, we you know, I've been with Laird for half of my adult life, like half of my life. And when I met Laird, he was certainly much better at what he does than what I did. Like, I knew that. I always say, if you're a professional athlete, you're 1%. But then inside of that, every once in a while, there's another 1%. And that's a different group. And actually, Laird is one of those athletes. I'm a 1%. I'm not a 1% of the 1%. It's just,
you just said you guys were normal. I get it.
We have our mistakes, and we get tired of communication, and our kids think we're idiots, and, you know, they don't listen, and it's all the normal stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Price is down, and like, we're not in, you know, like we're trying to be in charge, but barely, and, you know, everything that everybody. But I knew Laird's talent was sort of, and a level of dedication was actually, in that specific way, was at a much higher level than mine. I knew that, knowing Laird closely, and the thing is Laird is also more creative. He's like the artist, and so we're so different. We're different enough that then working together, it's like, I'm here to protect Laird, and also if there's ways I can amplify what he's doing, I enjoy doing that. And I always say you can draft behind Laird, so then he's always pulling everyone forward with the amount of energy, whether it's training or curiosity or trying new things. And so I sometimes get stuck in the quagmire of details, so I'll tuck in behind him there, so I stay open I, keep grinding it out. So there's a heavy sort of a complementary dynamic. However, we're still husband and wife, and there are days that we know it would be better. I joke, it's like we're almost like two kind of, battlers, and we just circle around each other. Like we just go, just keep a little friendly distance. Maybe let's not look and don't make eye contact. Let's not provoke, that Laird. And that just comes from a lot of experience. I don't need to get entangled, with every situation. And I've also learned not to take things personally. And on top of it, if 80% of the time we're incredibly loving and respectful to one another, when someone's having a bumpy moment or a bad day, you got to give them the pass to be like, yeah, and not, be like, why would you talk to me like that? I mean, you do that in the beginning of your relationship until you learn. And so I think it's always too, like, you're always giving the person the benefit of the doubt because you know who they are.
Yeah, that's maturation, awareness, being able to adapt, especially with people that we care about. Super important. With something I've been wanting to talk with you for a few years about is the intentions with XPT, the component of breath work and performance and recovery. Me personally, I was introduced to it from Brian McKenzie on this might have been, I did my first podcast in 2014. I live in Sydney now. And I met Brian when he was doing the Art of Breath, and he blew me away with, he's talking about being able to slow time down and control our cognition in times of like the fight or flight component. And then he directed me towards Phil White, and then Phil directed me towards Surette, and then Surette directed me towards Laird. So I've been on this path of learning, and now I get to talk to you about this. I currently am good friends with a breathwork coach. Her name's Lindsay. She is amazing. She's one of these women, when you meet them and you're like, she's doing exactly what she needs to be, helping people all through pain release breath, diaphragmatic breathing. When you combine those forces, what was your inspiration on creating that product to give to the world, that you had, the breath work and the movement were all connected? What was the inspiration behind all that?
Honestly, well, going back to breath, if you think about it, breath is the essence of life, and most of us are doing it wrong, including me many times throughout the day. I catch myself, I go, oh, nice chest breathing. Or like, vertical
panic breathing.
Yeah, it's like, so I think a friend of ours, Rick Rubin, years ago, had introduced Laird really to Wim Hof. But when you get into breath, it's really one of the oldest practices. So it's sort of like saying bone broth. People are like, okay, really? So then we started really rigorously incorporating it into our daily kind of overall practice. And I think as you're an athlete and you train a long time, or, when I say athlete, I mean just someone who's using their body all the time. You start to go, so move, breathe, move, and recover is sort of the fundamentals for XPT. Okay, so breathing, if we're not doing that right, we're not helping ourselves in one of the easiest ways we can. Okay, moving, we are, as animals, we should be moving. But then the idea of recovery, active recovery, participating in recovery, not just like it's Wednesday, it's May die off, but like, hey, heat and ice and certain modalities where I can accelerate, support my recovery so that I can train harder. I can, maybe keep inflammation down and age in a the most vital way that I can. And so what happened is Jennifer, who you have talked to, is the one who was like, oh, we have to put this together and then we can do experiences and stuff and learn this is just what we were kind of really doing. And you have to realize too, is we always say about XPT that there's going to be certain things that are always going to be important. Like it would probably be better to get to bed sooner than later. Being hydrated is going to be important. Avoiding certain foods is always going to be important. But the hope also with XPT would be, so this is what we've been learning now, because we're students. We don't really know anything. And we'll give you the best that we know right now. And then if you saw us in 6 months or 2 years, we'd say, that was working, and we found this is working even a little better. So that there's at least some flexibility in there, because, and that certainly reflects Laird, even more than me, because that's to do with the curiosity, staying open-minded, and also, you know, I think it's really important never to speak in like intense absolutes about you have to do it this way and this is the only way. I think we're all really different. I think there's seasons. I think there's times of our life, if someone's highly stressed, maybe they shouldn't be banging a bunch of iron. Maybe they should be doing more breathing and nurturing their system. So I think the other hope of XPT was like, hey, listen, this is also a personal journey. So we want to encourage you to kind of go back in and say, what's going to feel really good and what do I need right now? And so breathe, move, and recover just came as sort of like really fundamental things. And it was Jennifer trying to put, you know, unfortunately, sometimes you have to put a frame around things. And that was her way of putting a frame around what we were doing. And then there's, you know, there's other elements, there's the pool and things like that, but that's, you know, that's a lot more specific. I actually think it's one of the more special parts of the program, but it's so hard to get a lot of people to do it because it's just a little trickier.
You know, they always say, if I knew now what I, you know, if I knew then what I know now, man, I would have been such a better athlete, or I could have done this differently. Does that hold true with you? Like, do those things ring true? Like, damn, if I would have, like, were you recovering when you were a pro athlete? Were you paying attention to all these things? Or was it, like you said, we're all students? Has it been like a lifelong journey?
I didn't, you know, a lot of this stuff I didn't start doing until I was probably in my 40s or, you know, 40s. And I think it was, you know, sometimes also when you're training for performance, so for, you know, when you're playing for such a specific thing like a sport and I need to jump and not be tired after 2 days of playing and whatever, I think sometimes it almost doesn't give you the freedom to look in all these other corners. You're just looking to the people in front of you, your trainers and your coaches, and they go, this is how we do it. And I think it's really easy to get stuck in that because there's only so much time in the day. And we think, oh, well, if I give up maybe that 2 hours on the beach to explore this breathing, is this going to impact my performance? Which is certainly wrong thinking. But I think, you know, it's so much dedication when you're trying to be really good at this very specific thing. And then the luxury to me has been having a partner and also people I can call or talk to, like a Kelly Starrett or a Paul Check, who are like willing to give me information and help me learn to improve. But then it's also like, Laird's different because he's riding big waves still. But for me, I would like to be as strong. I would like to be as balanced, you know, as I possibly can. And so then there's the luxury of learning, not like, well, is that going to impact my vertical jump? So I think you're always doing that. But we have some athletes that come and they're way ahead of where we were.
Are you doing one-on-one coaching?
I don't do one-on-one. What we do is we have a lot of professional athletes that will come, and the best business model is they come for free because then they show up on time. And you know, I always say any business, if I haven't learned this by now, that takes my actual man hours has a real limitation. So what we do, it continues to be the classroom for us and for them. So by having all these people who really are high level at certain things, you're learning from them about how it works from that system. And, you know, trying to figure out how do I interpret that to now the guy who's sitting at his desk. So I think it's a really symbiotic relationship with the athlete. But we're learning from them. And even though it appears that we're giving them certain things, at the end of the day, because that isn't for business, the exchange is very interesting because these athletes are coming and being very vulnerable and putting themselves in very uncomfortable situations, especially in the water. And so our job is also to push them and to take care of them. But they don't realize by being around them, because they're magnificent at what they do, you go, because they'll also be thinking, well, how can we help them? You know, like, oh, this guy is running backwards and then he has to pivot, or this guy's, you know, doing this, or, you know, whatever it is, whether it's basketball players that have their, you know, feet in shoes all day long, and then they're jumping and landing. How do we, all that. So it's really good because again, everybody's paying attention and trying new things.
Yeah, the creativity component. I have a small team. We're working on this documentary behind the scenes, putting together this trailer. It's about the main narrative right now is about living a life that we don't just live life, love life. So I think we all have these moments where it's like an aha moment. How did I get here? And you're not happy there. Or how did I get here? And you're thrilled with how life got you there. And I'm wrestling with this idea that it comes down to just simply creating. Like rather than consuming all day, finding ways to create, even if it's journaling, even if it's podcasting, something happens, I think, neurologically with our endorphins that makes us feel, I guess, a little bit more adequate. So on that premise with you and your day-to-day, maybe share with us some things that you kind of create on a day-to-day basis.
I think, for me, I do get to do the podcast. I've interviewed people for 28 years since I was like.
The Tom Papa interview was awesome.
What? Oh, you
Tom
like?
Papa? Oh yeah.
Love Bug.
Your synergy with him were like, it was so kind of, it's effortless. Effortless was the perfect word for me.
Yeah, and I enjoy talking to people even when maybe we don't have the same language, because I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
He's a comic.
Yeah, but I mean, no, like I think Papa as a human and I would probably like see eye to eye. I'm talking about people that they're like really coming from a different place, and I'm like, oh wow, okay. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a quantum physicist, and he said, his religion was empathy, and he's like, if you can find common ground with a person, you can at least understand where they're coming from a little, right? But so there's learning there and connection. And I think for me, my youngest daughter is 12 and my middle daughter is 16. They're at home. And there's sort of an exercise every day between being a parent and even being in a relationship, and an intense relationship, right? I'm not married to somebody who's like not paying attention. Like this is intense. And it's like, you're on, like your words are chosen, everything. Like, meaning I don't throw anything out there. I always joke that if my phone rings, and I know it's not like it's Laird to talk to me, unless I can give him my full attention, I actually won't answer my phone. Like, and this is after 24 years, right? So I guess for me, the creative part is seeing how I can show up every day. If I notice like, oh, you're phoning that in. Am I paying attention? Am I handling this, whatever this is, better than I handled it last week? Did I learn anything? Was I able to apologize when I blew it? And was I able to identify why? So for me, it's also the nuance of living as a flawed human who's scared, who's, unsure, but then can do some okay things. But as a stripped down, vulnerable parent that's a scary job. And as a partner to somebody, and then in work, it's like there's creativity in work, in Laird Superfood and making new products, stuff that we've been drinking for 4 or 5 years, and we're slowly trying to get it over there so that we can make it, can we make it cost effective and get it out?
Turmeric coffee stuff.
Yeah, we have. I mean, listen, we have hot chocolate with mushroom. We have turmeric. We have InstaFuels, hydrate products, freeze-dried coconut. We have all kinds of stuff. But the whole thing is like into chaga, has been for years and years, right? So his next thing will be, how do I get chaga into Laird Superfood? How do I get shilajit into, but where people will be able to consume it, not be grossed out, but they could afford it. So I think there's ways to express creativity there. But I've gotten really good over the years in appreciating, even though it can drive me crazy, repetition, because I understand task completion. We talk about that a lot. Like when I make my bed, I understand the value of that. I see, it's like seeing also the beauty that sometimes to get from A to B and through, there's got to be a level of repetition. And if we just dread it, that doesn't work. So if I know, that's why I talked earlier about, if I'm sure I can get up even when this sucks and work at this, that repetition, that process, that commitment, and the art of doing it right, that takes you somewhere. And so I think I've always been good about seeing the value in that and enjoying that, because it feels honest to me. That's what it is. Maybe for me, what sport always was, besides, yeah, okay, I loved competing, was when you were done with practice, it's like when people are done with training or a long bike ride, it feels honest. Like, what I was doing that. And I really like that. That feels good to me.
Yeah, the arena, one of my favorite quotes was from Teddy Atlas, famed boxing analyst expert. And he says, the ring is the chamber of truth. You could be, and I put that, and you could put that in any competitive space. In that moment, it doesn't matter who you are outside or what you say or who you present yourself as. In that moment of competition, that space, it's as honest as it gets. It's a beautiful, I always say that too, honesty. I have the boxing hanging back here because I grew up boxing, I coach boxing as well. And after a good session with some of my clients and friends here, I just tell them, like, that's the most honest thing you'll do all day. Like, it's, you know, we're not trying to hurt each other. We're just trying, I call it problem solving. We're just problem solving. But you mentioned the superfoods, and time is very valuable. It's flown by. I could talk to you forever. But I want to leave the people where they could find, how could they check out all the products you guys have, also how they could tune in to your podcast. I'll put these links in the show notes as well.
So lairdsuperfood.com. No, wait, you said you're where?
I'm in Sydney, Australia.
I thought you said Sydney. Unfortunately, we have distributors in Sydney. We're not able to ship there ourselves, but I think we have distributors. But like, it's vegan. We eat animal protein ourselves in our everyday diet, or, you know, mostly. But the products are vegan and they're based on a habit. Paul Chek, who a lot of people in Australia, I think, are familiar with, the one who first gave ghee to Laird in his coffee 17 years ago. Because
really?
Laird coffee.
I got certified in Paul Chek lifestyle coaching like 6 years ago.
Superhuman. Like, when people tell me, you know, I'm certified in Chek, I'm like, yeah, okay, I know what that means. That's work. Yeah.
It was a while ago.
And so he's the one who introduced that. And from that, it's a coconut, and we have a lot of, you know, great flavors, and it's really easy to use. And then my podcast is just called the Gabby Reece Show. I'm not that creative. And, you know, my whole thing with that show was just, I think there's a lot of people who are good at what they do. But what I'm really interested at this point in my life is, how are you taking, you know, that experience and making, what are you learning there that you're now able to show up better in your everyday life? Because for me, I realized that I could sort of fake certain things. And going back to that honesty, half of training is just to be honest. And also to say, okay, because a lot of times, like, we're not going to be younger each day. But the reality is we could, you know, we can continue to polish the stone. So people might go, oh, well, I'm not getting younger. No, but you have opportunities, in so many ways in your life to keep improving. And so for me, that's the space that I'm really interested in. And, you know, because there's a lot of people who are very good at moving and eating well. But they're forgetting about, like, these bigger things, or dealing with, like, I'm going to squeeze your neck, and now emotionally you're super uncomfortable. How are you going to deal with it? You know, or whatever. And because for me, that's like the real stuff. Like, oh, I have 6% body fat. Amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Could you deal with adversity?
Like, do I want to be in a fight with you? And I don't want things to be positioned as like, oh, here's all the answers. Just position it